Have 7 o'clock on my computer here, so I'll call the Lake Elmo City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 6th to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. First order of business is approval of the agenda. If everything looks acceptable to the council members, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda is written.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Holtz, a second by Councilmember Hearn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is hereby approved. Next, we have approval of the minutes from the January 16th, 2024 meeting. I'll entertain a motion on the approval of those minutes unless somebody has something that needs to be changed or updated.
Move to approve the minutes from January 16th, 2024.
Motion by Councilmember Hearn, is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second by Councilmember Holtz. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from January 16th, 2024, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. I don't believe we have any public comments or inquiries at this time. We do have a presentation. Chief, would you like to present Mr. Nate Wagner?
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we honor Nate Wagner and his 5 years of total service with the City of Lake Elmo and the Lake Elmo Fire Department. Nate joined the fire department in October of 2017 as a part-time firefighter. He was one of our first part-time firefighters back then. And then in 2020, he left for a short time, but then came back later in 2021. Nate is a career firefighter with the Brooklyn Park Fire Department. He's also served with the Albert Lee Fire Department and the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. When not on shift, you'll find Nate at a local hockey rink. He's a assistant coach with the girls varsity high school team. He coaches 10U and Mites. I'm fortunate to coach with him too on one of these teams. And he also spends plenty of time with one-on-one coaching with a number of high school hockey athletes around the area. His experience and ability to coach is a huge benefit to our department, our staff through training, and his dedication to his other shift mates. So Nate, congratulations on 5 years of total service with the City of Lake Elmo. Thank you. Thanks. Gift card for him. You're well dressed.
Okay, squeeze in just a little, please. Perfect. Whoops. Thank you. I had one last night too.
Looks like we just lost half the audience. Well, we appreciate those guys that serve our city in those positions. They're really key to the safety and for our city of Lake Elmo. Can I get a volunteer to read through the consent agenda this evening?
Sure. 3, approve payment of disbursements. 4, appoint election judges for 2024 elections. Resolution 2024-015. 5, approve liquor license for Marma, 11127 Stillwater Boulevard North. 6, approve purchase of Public Works pickup truck. 7, approve purchase of Public Works personnel basket. 8, approve Easton Village 6th Edition Final Plat Extension, Resolution 2024-016. 9, approve Easton Village 7th Edition Final Plat Extension, Resolution 2024-017. 10, approve pay request 14 for the Water Tower 3 project. 11, accept improvements for Easton Village 4th Edition and approve security reductions for Easton Village 4th and 5th editions. 12, approve release of warranty security for public utilities for Hidden Meadows 2nd Edition. 13, approve release of grading security and warranty security for Easton Village 2nd and 3rd editions. 14, approve denial resolution for MYP Landscape Supplies Zoning Text Amendment, Resolution 2024-014. 15, approve housekeeping zoning text amendments, Ordinance 2024-03, Resolution 2024-018. 16, approve cost to construct Lake Elmo Dog Park. 17, approve Parks Commission 2024 work plan. 18, authorize advertising and hiring of Public Works seasonal employees. 19, approve 2024 employee recognition event. 20, approve firefighter hire.
Thank you, Councilmember Holtz. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Dragisich. We have a motion on the table to, approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. In our regular agenda, we have item number 21, which is Old Village Moratorium Ordinance 2024-04. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has identified the need to enact a moratorium for development of the central corridors of the Old Village area. An interim ordinance, which is also known as a moratorium, may be adopted in specific circumstances, one of those being a study. A moratorium can go for a period of 1 year. It can be lifted early, but it cannot be extended beyond the year unless there's extenuating circumstances. The moratorium would be used to study the use table of 11-1, which is for village districts, and then to analyze required utility, trail, and road corridors, and then pedestrian connectivity. During this time, the city can also update its village master plan, which would create a vision for the area, provide guidance on development and redevelopment. The last village master plan was done in 2007, and I have a snippet of what they pictured the Old Village area to look like at that time. The proposed moratorium would not impact projects that have already received city council approval or building permits. The city would process applications that have already been deemed complete, but they would reject incomplete or pending applications. The city currently has one complete conditional use permit request for United Rentals located at 11144 Stillwater Boulevard, which is the Old Fury Motor site. This application was deemed complete on January 25th. And they have renderings of the Old Village area with the red line. This is from the 2007 master plan. Then the area outlined in green would be the proposed moratorium area. This has been selected since it surrounds those corridors and it includes areas that is left to be developed. And then with that, I have a recommended motion before you tonight and can stand for any questions.
Questions for Ms. Jensen? I have a question related to what it looks like then to go through the planning stage for that, and if there's budget available to do such in our budget. Has that been looked at?
For the master plan,
Right.
I would have to defer to city administrator.
I'd have to defer to the finance director, but I'm not aware of a budget that was planned for that particular thing. Am I mistaken in that? She does not recall. So that would have to be a contingency approval by the city council if we wanted to hire a consulting firm to redo the, what the mayor is talking about, for those who are not familiar with it. back in 2007, if I believe correctly, we hired a company to do a Old Village master plan of the vision for the downtown area. And it's a thick book, lots of graphics, it looked pretty. And that would be that would be kind of way out on the far end of what we could accomplish. And Sophia said it could be as simple as reviewing allowable uses within your current zones and adding or removing uses to your preference concerning what your vision is for the downtown. So I think part of it is what do you want, and then we will address the budget issue after that.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
Can you speak to how this is coming up or why this is coming up now as a priority as we look at other bigger priorities in the city such as water? I'm curious why this is, if we don't know if we have a budget to do it, why is it coming up now? What's driving this?
Yeah, so the moratorium can be adopted and we don't necessarily have to spend money on it. If we're reviewing simply the ordinance and the right-of-way dedications, that wouldn't require fees. If we do the master plan update, that would require fees, and we would review it at likely a workshop before we move forward with that. Recently, city staff has received questions regarding possible applications that aren't necessarily consistent with the goals of the comp plan. So we found that it would be worthwhile to take a deeper dive into this area specifically, since this is where we're getting many questions.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
So just on the heels of that, so I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but if we're getting questions around development and whether or not we see that in our old village, that would suggest that we would move forward with development, period, correct? Aside from our water issues. So, not to put you on the spot, but I think the bigger question is, if we need a moratorium, why would we not have a moratorium to study and figure out what we're gonna do about our water versus what our old village is gonna look like from a development standpoint?
So in that case, we did have a moratorium that was allowed for 1 year.
Yes.
In legal has opined that we can't do that moratorium based on water in this area. So so this area could be as simple as just a couple meetings where we say, is this allowable use in your vision? And it could be done in one meeting, basically. So this isn't necessarily putting a whole pause on it unless that's something you want to look at for redesigning the downtown and addressing your future plans. This gives you an opportunity to look at it. Staff brought this forward due to a concept and some preliminary investigation that we felt maybe was not in the best interest of in alignment within the vision for the comp plan for the downtown area. In addition, I think it might be useful for city council to entertain if the school district sells or demolishes the old elementary school here in town. Is that something that you want to look at allowable uses? And if your allowable uses are what you're in line with, you're fine. You don't have to do anything, actually. So this is just a pause that we're providing you based on something that came up.
So just a question then, would this be something staff would be doing and bringing proposals to the council as far as items that might align better with the old village area and uses within it?
Correct. If this is approved, we'd likely bring it to a workshop to discuss how invested we want to be in this process. And then staff would, at the end of it, bring forward ordinance amendments.
And so if we come to a conclusion sooner than a year, we can lift that, correct? If we're
Correct.
all happy with what goes in there. Okay? Councilmember Hearn.
So just a quick follow-up on that, with the workshop, any thoughts on which workshop this would be brought to? Is it a few months out? Are we thinking next month already? What's the timeline on that?
I believe it's tentatively slated for April.
Okay. And then, sorry if I ask one more. So with just to help me understand, the one complete conditional use permit application that's been submitted already, what would be the implications for that application again? I think in the presentation, it was saying it would still be able to move forward, but anything that came after it or that is in the process and deemed incomplete would be denied.
Rejected,
But
correct,
the one that's already started can move forward.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dragisich.
I believe there's some value in taking a look at this, particularly with the elementary school and what happens on that site when they build the new school. There's some other vacant properties there. It's a chance to revisit that vision to determine, is this consistent with what the city thought it would develop like, given these potential changes? Or are there amendments that need to be made to the ordinance to better achieve that vision going forward? And maybe a brief touch on, is the vision correct?
Councilmember Dragisich, if it's a question, we can ask questions. Discussion is limited until after there's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
I just wanted to tag on to a question in follow-up to Administrator Clark, Schroeder.
Sure. No problem.
So you indicated that this could maybe be done in a meeting or two. If that's the case, why do we need a moratorium? Can't we just have the meeting or two and do it without a moratorium? I guess I don't understand. If it's a small thing to do, why we can't just do it? Do we need to, are we required by law to have a moratorium to do this work? Or we're just wanting to do that? I'm not understanding.
We're not required by law to enact a moratorium. Depending on the scope of what council wants to do with this, staff would likely need more time, and a pause would be beneficial in that case.
Just in follow-up, again, I am going to go back to water and ask if this is premature, if we don't know what we're doing with our water. And we don't know what limitations we may have with water until we get through that. Again, if I were to support a moratorium at this point, it would be a citywide moratorium so that we can evaluate what we're going to do about development, redevelopment, our infrastructure related to water, which I would think is beyond what our previous moratorium was related to water. So I guess I'm just asking from your perspective as a planner, don't we need to have our water figured out in order to really understand what we can and cannot do? Is this possibly premature?
That would be a decision for city council. The moratorium would impact conditional use permits, interim use permits, variances. So you're looking at smaller scale projects in addition to those plats, which would initiate that premature subdivision ordinance.
So individual homeowners would be impacted if they wanted a variance or?
Correct.
Councilmember Holtz.
So regarding the item that's before us, how much of the documentation do we have still from that '07 potential overlay that was created for the old village? Besides the map, did they propose potential changes? Because that wasn't a comp plan proposal, that was a separate thing. How much do we have the entire plan?
We have the entire master plan.
All right. As this process rolls out, I'd be curious if we could just get access to that. Not because it shall be done, I would just be curious, what were the thoughts at that time? And see if there's anything that could be gleaned as well from that.
We'll provide that if it's approved, we'll provide that to council for certain review when we have the first meeting to discuss this. And again, as council, you'll dictate the scope of this.
Yep. Thank you.
One more question.
Yes.
Have you received any concerns from developers, companies in the area? Any concerns that have been brought up since this has been put on the agenda?
No.
No, okay.
Just a clarifying question on that, did we notify any of the developers or anyone that's looking at?
So the only application that we have in the queue is that conditional use permit, and they were notified of the review of the moratorium. We don't have any other pending applications that this would have impacted, so we didn't notify anybody.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 2024-04 and order city staff to prepare an old village master plan, study the uses in the village districts, table 11-1, analyze required utility, road and trail corridors and pedestrian connectivity during the period of the interim ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hearn and a second by Councilmember Holtz. Discussion.
I'll just start. I mean, I think this is the right thing to do, to take a step back. I agree that obviously the water issue has to be resolved. I'm hopeful that we're gonna keep moving in that direction and that we're gonna have solution for that. So I would rather be prepared with what we wanna be doing with the old village and having a plan that's probably is gonna look different than what it looked like in 2007. And I'd rather be prepared for that, knowing that there might be some slight modifications we need to make based off of what happens with water. I'm also very hopeful that this can be I think a quicker process. I don't think this is gonna be a full year. So I do think that there is a lot of good to taking this step and at least looking at it, even if nothing changes, but to make sure that we're all very certain with what's changed from 2007 to now, that this still makes sense for Lake Elmo.
Councilmember Holtz.
I fully agree with all of that, and at this point, I would just plan to save my comments for the workshop as to further thoughts as to where we go. This is really an opportunity to decide on things that matter. The Old Village is a topic that comes up often with residents. They care about the Old Village. There's many perspectives that have been offered, and I feel it's a conversation that we have not had as a council. So I think this is going to be a worthy opportunity.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
Well, I think there's a place to do this review. It certainly needs to be done since it's fairly dated, and I think we've changed as a city over that time. I still struggle with higher priorities in the city and putting resources towards this when I'd rather see us talk about water at a workshop, which we've not done to this point, about what our plan is. And so again, I would go back to a moratorium that I would support is a citywide moratorium on development until we figure out what we're doing about water. To me, again, this is premature because we don't know. We have bigger fish to fry, in my opinion, and I would rather Sophia's time and others on our staff, I would rather their time was dedicated towards figuring out our water issues than updating a plan for the old village. So I don't support this moratorium at this point.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Schroeder.
I also have one more comment for council consideration, which is, we had been directed to put on an RFP and sell the fire station number 2 and the Parks building down there. And I think it would be a good opportunity before we try to seek somebody to buy that piece of property. What would your vision be? Because again, it's gonna be zoned, there'll be an allowable use. If you're gonna sell the building and the property, you should at least maybe guide it the way you want it to guide it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, actually. Thank you for bringing that, because I meant to bring that in as well. I think that is actually a big part of this, and we can bring both of those, because I mean, we had been talking about using a workshop just for that. I feel like we can bring these together and be more efficient with it as well.
All right, with that, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor of the motion to adopt ordinance number 2024-04, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. All right, moving along. Number 22 is the 8012 Hill Trail Variance, Resolution 2024-019.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant for tonight's variance application is Daniel and Ann Stout. The property is located at 8012 Hill Trail North. The property is currently zoned rural single family with a shoreland overlay on it, and it is guided in the 2040 comp plan for rural single family. The property was previously granted a variance in 2022 for 19.1% impervious surface, but due to delays with the builder, the applicant was unable to start construction within that 1-year timeframe, and the variance has since expired. So the request before you tonight is to allow impervious surface coverage of 19%, where a maximum of 15% is allowed. And then I have a site plan and table for you for review. Again, the zoning district or overlay impervious surface maximum is 15%. The property is currently a legal nonconformity at 17.2%. They received variance approval in 2022 for 19.1%, and they're coming before you tonight for a slightly reduced request at 19%. And this is again for a home addition. So agency review was sent out on December 22nd. We received comments from the city engineer and fire department. The memos have been reviewed, and we've added conditions of approval to address those comment items. A public hearing was sent to surrounding property owners on January 10th and published in the local paper on January 12th. City staff has not received any public comment at this time, and there was no public comment at the public hearing. So reviewing the variance criteria, the variance criteria reasoning has not changed since the last request. In short, the request meets all four of them. The practical difficulty would be that they need adequate living space. The unique circumstances were that the current owner did not build the property, and they were seeking other options, but they were unsuccessful at that, requiring the variance. The character of locality, the proposed addition and variance request would be consistent with the principal structure. And then adjacent properties and traffic, the proposed request would still be screened and well-spaced from adjacent properties. So recommended conditions, the first one is pretty standard, outlining what the variance request is for. The second is that 12-month expiration date. The third is that the building materials will be similar and compatible with the existing structure. Those first three are pretty standard to all variances. The fourth and fifth are related to the city engineer memo, and then the sixth and seventh are related to the fire department memo. So then the planning commission reviewed this request at their January 22nd planning commission meeting. They voted to recommend approval of the request 6-0. And with that, I can stand for any questions, and we do have the applicant here tonight.
Question for Ms. Jensen? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adopt Resolution 2024-019, approving the variance request with conditions from Daniel and Ann Stout to allow an impervious surface coverage of 19% at 8012 Hill Trail North.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Holtz, a second by Councilmember Beckstrom. Discussion, if any.
It was good to go a year ago. I am good to go now.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of adopting Resolution 2024-019, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Resolution is hereby adopted. Thank you. Number 23, Dog Park Name Resolution 2024-020. Mr. Swanepoel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. On to some fun topics, correct? In March of 2023, the City Council approved the placement of a dog park at 4295 Jamaica Avenue location. That location of the park is adjacent to the Sunfish Lake Park and provides a fenced-in approximately 10-acre parcel, which was previously unused. Two different opportunities were open for the community to offer suggestions for naming the park. The Light Up Lake Elmo event, which was held on December 1st, brought about 40 suggestions, as well as our community survey, which was posted on the city's webpage, and our fresh newsletter brought an additional 20 suggestions. The issue before the council tonight is what name would the city council like to select for our community dog park? Staff has put together a list of names, which is provided to you in your packet. The list of names were presented to the Parks Commission at the January 17th meeting. The Parks Commission reviewed those names and suggested the following names be considered to the City Council. These are in order of their likeness. Lake Elmo Dog Park, Lake Elmo Pup Park, Tri Lakes Dog Park, Lake Jane Dog Park, Lake Elmo Lucky Paws Park. So I'll stand with that. At this time, we can attend the motion.
Any questions for Adam on this? Okay, who wants to make a motion and take a jump at it?
Well, I'll make a motion.
Ooh, which one? Which
The
one?
commissioners are gonna hate me for this. Motion to approve Elmo's Pup Park as the formal name for the dog park located at 4259 Jamaica Ave through resolution 2024-020. This will be fun.
Oh, I'll totally second this. I want to talk about this. Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Elmo's Pup Park? Was that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, as the formal name for the dog park.
Well, I'll just start out with,
Discussion.
I'm okay if that gets denied. I will just add one piece to this as, talking to Oakdale about their dog park. They specifically said they regret adding, I can't remember if it was like Woof or, Bark Park or something like that, specifically adding that name to it just brings more attention to the noise. So if we disagree with Elmo's Pup Park, I would just, encourage us to avoid maybe anything that is talking about barking or woofing.
All right,
So that's my 2 cents on it. And
There's
Elmo's
is-
Pup Park just, it sounds a little simpler, almost sounds like a dog to me. And I don't want people to be confused, so we're gonna include pup.
okay. Any other discussion?
So just to clarify, instead of Lake Elmo Pup Park, it's Elmo's Pup Park.
Correct.
Okay.
My preference for naming of things of this nature is to keep it simple, keep it easy. While Councilmember Hearn's deviating from the commissioners, and he can deal with their wrath as he may wish, but I have no dog in that fight, if you will,
Nice.
Oh, come on.
for Elmo's Pup Park. It's fine by me. I had to do it.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I would ask legal to opine on the word Elmo, if there's any trademarks associated with that from the Muppets.
Actually.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I believe not. I mean, that is a name of a person, and Lake Elmo is obviously named after it, so I don't think there's an issue there.
Just double checking here, making sure you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep us out of trouble. Yes, Councilmember Dragisich.
I have no real strong feelings one way or the other. I think they're all interesting names. Elmo's Pup Park is certainly an interesting one. As you said, Mayor, I have no dog in this fight either, but
Yeah. All right. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion to approve Elmo's Pup Park as a formal name for the dog park located at 4259 Jamaica Avenue through resolution 2024-020, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And you get to stay up here for the Lions Park advertisement, Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Since the rebuild of the Lions Park ball field in 2017, residents and businesses have had the opportunity to advertise in the outfield fence. This year, over 20 advertisement signs were placed in the outfield. Over the past few years, staff has received several cases where they've asked for replacement or changes of their signs within the outfield. These cases were due to storm damage, advertisers wishing to change their style, or maybe some language that's on those signs. Currently, there's no language in our policy or in a resolution of how often these signs should be replaced, or if an advertiser should be charged for these changes. Issue before the council tonight is would the city council like to recommend advertisers pay for their own sign along with the yearly renewal fee? So just a little history off of this. Currently, if someone were to start a new sign with our, to be placed in the outfield, it costs $500. 200 of that would be taken from that $500 deposit to pay, to make and create the sign. So initially, $300 would go into our ball field improvement fund. Anybody who renews their sign from year in, from that year out, would just pay the upfront $500, and that sign would just get, would remain on the fence line. Signs currently are being made by Weekend Signs and Graphics. Kathy has been creating the signs since the program started in 2017, and has been a strong advocate for the improvements of the ball field. Staff has seen no changes in the pricing of these signs since 2017 when she started. City staff suggests having the advertisers pay for the sign up front, in addition to that annual fee of $500. Allowing advertisers to pay for their own sign will continue to fund the ballpark's improvement fund, as well as allowing those advertisers to make any needed changes at their own expense versus at the city's expense. The city has the ability to collect over $10,000 a year on advertisement for the Lions Park ball field. Remaking each one of those signs can potentially cost up to $4,000. Updating the advertisement language in our Lions Park ball field will help keep a healthy balance in our improvement fund and allow for advertisers the ability to have an advertisement sign that looks new and fresh with their updated information. Currently, our resolution states the following, and we're just looking to make these changes and this small addition. So we're looking to change the initial cost of the sign would come from the advertisers in addition to a yearly fee to be deposited with Lions Park Ball Field Improvement Fund. And whereas the Parks Commission also recommends at its October 16th meeting, advertisers are required to use the vendor selected by city staff. That'll allow for the opportunity to maintain a consistent signage in the outfield versus we have different, if we have the advertisers select different vendors, we might have different types of advertisement out there, which we try to limit. With that, staff recommends the following motion, and I'll take any questions.
Yeah, so question, the 4x8 sign, those are the ones that go along the fence, correct?
Yep.
And then the larger signs, where would those be located?
So we haven't actually had anybody pay for or request that, but normally what they would do, they'd be two separate signs within those squares in the outfield. So the way that they're made now, they'd be hard to put together and stay, consistent between those two. So they would be probably the same advertiser, but just in two different spots with a space in between.
I get it. Okay. Any other questions for Adam? Councilmember Hearn?
Just to clarify, the advertisers that are already there, would they be required to pay for the cost of the signs, or would that be just moving forward for new signs?
Moving forward for new signs.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
And that would, but if there's a current advertiser there and they wish to have a new sign, then they would pay for that new sign in addition to the $500 sponsorship, correct?
Correct.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Is there any concern that you might lose some advertising signs by adding a $200 extra cost on?
Actually, the $200 is a relatively cheap advertisement sign. We've actually, because just in discussion with our current maker now, we have looked at other opportunities just in case that one would decide to retire or move on from making those signs. And we are looking at a significant increase in price if we did select a different vendor. So I think even at this time, I don't see that would lose a whole lot of advertisers. So it's a great opportunity.
Councilmember Holtz.
What would happen if someone came and wanted to do an advertisement, but their company as a whole already has shared use agreements with a different sign company, and they can't, for whatever reason, do those contracts or their copyrighted image? Like, they're already bound to use a different company. Would we just tell them no?
Do you know, Marty?
I think that's up to them to figure it out. We've kind of decided that it's in the city's best interest to stay consistent and try and get the same product for everyone. So how they grab that logo or have it redesigned would be up to them.
So they could use a different vendor if it was the same shape and size?
As of right now, we decided not.
Or, I just ask because I know of companies where they already have those agreements with certain companies for all advertising, whether it's their signage out front, whether it's advertisements they put in papers, or the advertisements that they put with community places. So they already have those contracts. But I would also presume you also have not encountered a situation where that problem has come up yet.
No, I have not.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
If there aren't any more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend to City Council to amend Resolution 2017-070 to include the initial cost of the sign would come from the advertiser in addition to a yearly fee of $500 for a 4x8 sign and $900 for a 4x16 sign, and are required to use the vendor selected by city staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Hearn and a second by Councilmember Dragisich. Discussion.
I think I'll just add, I could even see the price going higher, so I think this is at least a step in the right direction, that we're bumping the price up from where it's been. It seems very reasonable from an advertising perspective. Knowing what other advertising costs, I still think this is a great deal, so I definitely agree with bumping the price up, and I think maybe even considering down the road, looking at providing even some higher fees possibly for this, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction.
I know there was a question regarding vendors, and I tend to agree just to, for consistency's sake, using the same vendor for the signs and the advertisements, so that I know sometimes maybe some companies, it gets tricky when they bind themselves to certain agreements, but I think for city staff purposes and the park purposes, I would lean in that direction as well, so I'm in favor of this motion. Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to recommend City Council to amend Resolution 2017-070 as referenced in the document, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Next on the agenda is Bridgewater Village Preliminary Plat, Resolution 2024-007.
Apologize for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. As you may not recognize me, I am a consultant planner, a senior consultant planner for Bolton and Mink. I'm filling in for Nathan First tonight, who was unable to make the meeting. So as we go through this, I know you've seen this presentation before and discussed this, I believe, multiple times. So I will make my comments brief as I go through the slides of the presentation. Do anything button? Thank you, Sophia. As you're aware, what is before you tonight is a preliminary plat for Bridgewater Village. This project you have, as I said, seen before, I would believe once in November and then again in just last month here in January. The project consisted of multiple applications, one being a comprehensive plan amendment, a rezoning request, a conditional use permit request, as well as the preliminary plat request, which is before you tonight. At the January 2nd City Council meeting, you did approve the comprehensive plan amendment as well as rezoning and the conditional use permit. But the preliminary plat was deferred by City Council to further continue the discussion with, I believe, with the water situation that is precluding before the development activity in Lake Elmo. The developer did agree to an extension on that night to extend further into later February to allow for the project to be further discussed into February as before you tonight. I won't go through all the details in depth, but as you recall, the site is a 23-acre site with no wetlands on it. The comprehensive plan guidance is for village medium-density residential and commercial. Its existing zoning also complies with those comprehensive plan guidance as approved by council. And the land uses proposed are for 4 commercial sites, one being a bank use and outlots for future residential development. Brief design layout, again, you're familiar with this, showing the residential townhome layouts to the north and the 4 commercial sites with the stormwater pond to the south. As far as commercial standards go, most of the commercial standards on the site do meet the qualifications and design standards of the zoning area for commercial. There is one that is highlighted here that doesn't quite meet the parking setback from residential zoning, but again, that could be altered in the future with a redesign of that commercial site when it comes in for site plan review. The subdivision requirements, as I mentioned, for land use, lot sizes, landscaping, grading, public infrastructure, parkland dedication, a lot of these were reviewed by city staff in the preceding months, and no flexibility is requested from these cities' zoning and subdivision requirements. So therefore, no planning development or any flexibility standards for the preliminary plat. Landscaping requirements, this just briefly shows the landscaping conditions that were reviewed. Again, nothing that was out of the ordinary and site-specific. Parkland dedication is going to be proposed to be filled through the cash in lieu payment as there's no park in this area. The parks plan does identify other parks within the vicinity that would satisfy the Parks and Trails system for Lake Elmo in the area. As far as staff comments goes, a lot of it was included in your report from the city engineer, the landscape architect, the city fire chief, and other governmental agencies. A lot of these revisions and suggestions of conditions are typical suggestions that would be conditions of approval upon a preliminary plat resolution of approval. Nothing was out of the ordinary that was not consistent with the intent of the preliminary plat for Lake Elmo. They're merely conditions that are suggested as city staff would move forward with the design and permitting review of the site. The agreements, fees, permits, reviews required, again, no flexibility granted or was requested in this case. Its conformance is with the zoning that's required for both the commercial and the residential areas, and as I said, a lot of the conditions seem pretty standard for what is before you for preliminary plat. So the Planning Commission recommendation that was on the 23rd of October, no comments were received at the meeting prior to or since then. Unanimous recommendations for all 4 land use application requests for the comp plan amendment, the rezoning the plat, as well as the conditional use permit were received from the Planning Commission. And so that brings us to the discussion that you tabled the item for was part of the water supply or the water situation. This is the premature subdivision code for the city of Lake Elmo. It's pretty standard language for lack of adequate water supply. And it was a way in, if you were to deem the item as a premature, this would be that grounds for denial of development, that you would need to find some type of a premature situation, other grounds for denying a preliminary plat that is inconsistent with the situation, the goals for Lake Elmo and what lies ahead for Lake Elmo right now. So before you tonight really are 2 recommended motions that have been drafted by staff. One would be to approve the preliminary plat, and that would be to move or adopt the resolution with findings and effect that are contained in a resolution that was in your packet. The other would be possibly to direct staff to prepare a resolution of denial based on specific findings of fact. And I'm sure that the city administrator or the city attorney could also chime in here, but being clear in direction about your findings specifically in that event of a denial motion would be specific in drafting that resolution in the future for council to make considerations. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have, or I can also defer questions to the city administrator or city attorney, which has a little more background on the subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matzke. Questions? Councilmember Holtz?
Have we already calculated the park dedication amount for the 10%?
I believe it has been calculated. I don't have that number in front of me right now, but staff seem pretty consistent with that direction for cash in there.
I asked because I couldn't find the CRV for it to see what the actual sale price of the parcel was, as I'm guessing the sale was probably higher than the assessed value, since the assessed value was based upon it being farmland.
Okay.
Councilmember Baxter?
Not sure who to direct this question to. I imagine you probably won't be able to answer it. But, so since we last talked about this in early January, what has changed in our water situation? Do we have any resolution or a plan or a court ruling? What has changed? Anything?
I would defer that to the city administrator.
I would defer to Sarah, but I will say, I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong here. So in the contested case hearing, the briefs have been, or are being submitted as we speak, from Kennedy Gravens to the court. And we also have had, council has the opportunity to read those briefs. In addition, council has had the opportunity to review the briefs from the homeowners association and from the DNR. And that will be going to, I think the due date is like next week sometime. Judge has 90 days to review that? Yes. So the judge will rule on that, and we don't know where he'll rule or will that affect the allocation or not. The issue that is in front of the city right now is the permit is issued at $260. The draft permit, as was reported in the newspaper, was for $472, and then allocating more if we hooked up some homes and Cimarron. And so we have been in negotiations with the DNR, and there is no resolution concerning that draft permit at this time, and we have not heard back from the DNR after we gave the DNR basically council feedback. Anything to add to that, Ms. Sarah?
No. So no change.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Councilmember Hearn.
So the two options are either tonight approve this and go forward with it, or to make the motion to come back with the reasons for denial. Is there any other options? Is there, the extensions have all been used up? This is the decision point. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Holtz?
I don't know if this is a question for staff or for the developer. As I recall, obviously the platting would be in the future for where the additional homes are, but the engineering for the water reuse would be built now for the bank and the facilities, obviously taking into account the potential to be used for those homes, correct? So it's all that is being front-ended for that time. The developer's nodding yes.
Yeah, if you can talk to that, that'd be great.
And then as you're coming up, I guess, second question, at a high level, is there an estimate as to when you think or believe the potential would be for that future platting for the residential side? Are you thinking a year, 5 years? Obviously not 20 years, but at a high level.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Matt Alexander with North Shore Development Partners representing Bridgewater Village. And to answer Councilmember Beckstrom's question from the water issue specifically, legally nothing's changed. There are some updates that I think, following our conversation that we discussed internally and discussed with our engineers, and specifically about the irrigation reuse plan that Councilmember Holtz brings up, the intent and the project does incorporate a irrigation reuse plan in the first phase, which is the commercial phase, which is 4 commercial lots. And to continue down that path of the commercial lots, there is not a national study done comparing a commercial building on an irrigation reuse system and comparing it to a single-family home of an average size that is on city water for irrigation. But our mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer estimates the range somewhere between 10 and 25% usage for an office building compared to a single-family home that's on city water services for irrigation. So we're talking, the plat contemplates 4 commercial lots, one being a bank branch, 2 others being office buildings, and the third is a in-between building, but it would have to go through the city for final plan approval for whatever that usage is. The building delivery of these 4 commercial lots would be the bank first, and perhaps, hopefully, if we were able to continue this path forward, another office building. And those buildings would not become open and on the system until summer of 2025. So we would do the work, put in the roads, utilities, all those things would come online. The irrigation reuse system would go online. While the construction of the bank branch is underway, actual water usage for that branch wouldn't begin sometime in second to third quarter of 2025. So that's some interesting conversation. The plat application that would then come in for the MVDR, the medium density residential, is expected well after the beginning of construction of the first phase. If the water issue is resolved, I would estimate we would be in shortly thereafter. If it's next year, so be it. This is a Bridgewater Village is owned by Bridgewater Bank. They're very excited to be a part of the community and invest they're into the community. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to, do we have, motion to adopt resolution 2024-007,
007.
approving the preliminary plat for Bridgewater Village with the findings and conditions therein.
We have a motion by Councilmember Holtz. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second by Councilmember Hearn. Discussion. Councilmember Holtz.
As I started to think about this, there's so many layers to this. Number one, I think we all agree that the proposal before us is a value gain from the city if we talk about the proposal. It expands the tax base, it creates jobs, and we know from our many discussions about water that higher density of housing, which is what this is zoned for, is actually one of the tools in our toolkit to bridge our gap between usage and appropriations. And it's the complete reverse of common sense. But for those who are watching, the reason for that is because the appropriation is based upon the 75.90 per person per gallon per day ruling from the Ramsey County Court judge. And the higher the density, the less per person of the water is used. It's complete reverse irony. It makes no sense. So to me, if we were to go down the road of denying this on the basis of the appropriation, not only would we be setting a legal precedent for this, but we would be setting a legal precedent of our ball field conversation, our 180 acres that we negotiated as a city with 3M because our water's polluted. That land would become worth $0 because we would not be able to develop it. And more importantly, we would take away the biggest tool in our toolkit for bridging that gap between the appropriations and usage. A gap that the DNR is fully aware of, we are having good faith conversations and negotiations with. They are fully aware. And I asked about the timeline because we are also all aware that Lake Elmo is a part of the East Metro Water Group, a group that is responsible for finding long-term water supply water solutions for the East Metro. I see this time period now as bridging the gap, finding in good faith solutions to try to reduce per person usage. And one of the ways, absurdly, does involve construction of higher density of housing. It shouldn't be. It makes no sense. Blame Ramsey County Court judge. But it does. And I think after this meeting, we should also have a very good conversation about other good faith efforts to reduce usage. And I have many things here listed. We could update city code so that future developments don't have a permitted use of, that could come in, of hotels or car washes. Those are highest usage type things. Let's take it out of city code. If we are serious about the water issue, let's do it. We could update our landscaping standards for when single-family housing developments come in to encourage softscapes, hardscapes, different types of sods that are not Kentucky blue or fescue. We could start to work cooperatively with the DNR to do water audits. They are willing to help. They are willing to assist. They are not our enemy. They are a partner that can work with us. So I care about this city. I care about the future, and I do not want to take away the biggest tool in our toolkit, which is, as I said before, some of the future housing. So I fully approve of this. And I understand others may not, and that's okay. We are allowed to disagree, but to me, this is for the actual long-term benefit of the city.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Beckstrom.
I think we all care about Lake Elmo, the city, and our future, and we absolutely can agree to disagree, because I strongly disagree with moving forward, and I go back to what I brought up earlier in this meeting, which was, we don't have a plan, we have not talked about a plan, we have nothing. We have collectively as a council not sat down and said, what are we going to do from a development standpoint? What do we believe is the right solution from a development standpoint if our water appropriation does not change? What are we willing to do? We're willing to put a moratorium in to talk about what we want the old village to look like and look forward to workshops where we can talk about the fun stuff. But when are we gonna have a workshop to say, how do we feel about development in this city and what are we willing to do? We've skirted around making a decision on it for several months. And I hear all kinds of excuses. I hear fear tactics and taxes are gonna skyrocket if we don't do this. But I have yet to see any data in front of me that demonstrates what the impact will be if we halt development for a specified amount of time to get our act together and figure out what we're gonna do. I don't see how we can responsibly move forward with a development. We're not evaluating whether this is a good, bad, or other development. It's a good development. It absolutely is and would benefit the city. But we have a problem with water. And we can put reuse in all we want. The fact is we're already over our appropriation. So it doesn't matter if we're gonna, try to save water by implementing strategies. The fact is we are over our appropriation by 200%. So, I mean, we have to do something. We can't just continue to approve development knowing that we don't have a solution and we collectively as a council don't have a plan. And that troubles me because I want to have the conversation. I want to get it on the table and I want us to really be thoughtful about development in this city and not just look at developments coming in and saying, well, this is a good one, we should do it, or this is not a good one, we shouldn't do it. That's not the way to do this. We need to have a plan. And I just don't understand why that is so difficult for us to do. I don't know why it's so difficult to get data around the impact to our budget should we slow development. I'm being told that I have to have council direct staff to do that, which is ridiculous to me when we should already have that data in front of us to say, if we slow development, this is the impact to taxes. So this, to me, is a bad decision to move forward. And we need to get our act together as a council and figure out what our plan is. My recommendation, again, is we put a moratorium in place citywide for a year and figure out what our plan is. If we don't get more water appropriated to us, what do we do? So I can't support moving this forward. I just simply cannot with the given situation.
Councilmember Hearn.
All right, I'm gonna try to hit on a few parts there. So this is a tough one for me. I disagree. I think the council and the staff has done a lot, and I think we've been very proactive on this. I think we're in a very tough situation because every single month when we come back, there's different information, there's different moving pieces, and I think that's why it's been hard to maybe have a plan, because we know if we make a plan, 1 month from now, it's probably going to change, which adds to the frustration with this. I agree nothing legally has changed, and that has been my biggest holdup with this, is that the DNR has the ability to fine us for going over in usage. I think at the same time, with the comment about taxes, I agree, we haven't seen a number. When we had the water plan brought to us, it was specifically mentioned that if we do not meet the population growth that was expected, that financially we would be in a difficult situation. She didn't provide the exact number. I believe she said that, you know, this is something that would need to be revisited if the water issue continues and we're not able to continue to grow. So that is a concern of mine. I see this as we're putting ourselves in a tricky situation and possibly a financial hit due to the DNR could sue us. But I see we could have a financial hit if we don't make a move and we have to raise the taxes by double-digit %. So I think there's more to it than the council and the staff has not been proactive on this and without a plan. I guess I disagree with that. I still do have a hard time on this. I'm interested to hear what Councilmember Dragisich his stance on this, because I know you get to chime in for the first time tonight. I would hate to see us turn businesses away, but this is not an easy decision either, and I guess I'm going to look to the other discussion from Mayor and Councilmember Dragisich to see what they have to say, because my mind is not made up on this right now.
Well, I'll jump in then, put my head in the water, I guess. I'm very understanding of the current water situation the city is facing, and how do we balance the development that we have planned for, and we need to make the city grow and increase its tax base and manage expenses with the fact that we don't know how much water we're going to have. You have the East Metro Group, which is charged with finding a solution by 2027. I'm hopeful that they can achieve it by then. I'm not particularly convinced that will happen because it's a very complicated situation. I'm wondering in my mind if there's a way to kind of find a balance here. The bank itself would not use a lot of water because it's, particularly with the irrigation from the ponds. Is there a way to move this and say, can we move forward with the commercial portion of it, but put a delay on the housing portion subject to the resolution of the water issue? That kind of helps us in two directions, gets the some development going there and increase our tax base, but doesn't create a significant demand on our limited water supplies. I've read through almost all of the water information that there is, and my head is actually swimming because there's a lot of contradiction in those documents. It's confusing at times, and the options are, fairly significantly different. I'm intend to, based on what we've heard tonight, I'm tending to lean in the direction of approving because I don't see the housing piece coming until later on, and hopefully we'd have a solution to the water issue by then. But I'm very sympathetic to Councilor Beckstrom's position that we have to find some way to deal with these issues between now and 2027 that doesn't put us in a bind. I wish I had the solution, but I don't. And at some point we get to talk about, so I got to talk about, as I read through all those reports, there's a lot of concerning issues in there from my perspective.
Thank you. I received, somebody would like to talk on this issue, but typically that inquiry or that discussion happens prior to any motion or city council moving in. So I'm gonna respectfully, Ms. Dunn, that time has passed, so we'll just set that aside for now. There's been a lot of good discussion here. And I think I've made my stance fairly clear on this. I do have some hope and I'm optimistic for the East Metro Water Group to develop something that will help not just Lake Elmo, but all the other, was it 11, 12 communities that are involved with this. It's not an easy answer. I think that the council has been discussing water for quite some time now, and since the first enactment of Judge Marinen's, and I think it was 2017, the city has not stopped any sort of development approvals as it's been moving forward, and certainly with the aspect of surface water being treated to help out the East Metro as a potential option along with other options. And the city is in a position where we are still looking at areas. Now, doesn't mean that we can pump from them, that we are looking at future locations for well sites that would include treatment options due to the PFAS. And there still are some discussions being had and that were made at the last court hearing related to the use of connecting parcels within our community that do have larger areas that are due to PFAS, and it's been expanded that our impact to the White Bear Lake water level is nearly negligible, and that has not been. I find that the DNR is stuck in like us, in a rock and a hard place, that they've been getting something that isn't necessarily easy to figure out. I guess if it were easy, it'd be done already. So I understand that we're venturing into an area of a lot of unknowns, and I guess I'm not going to placate to fear of us not having water. I think that it will happen. As again I said, I'm optimistic with the East Metro Water Group, and so I'm of the mindset to keep moving forward so that the city of Lake Elmo doesn't fall behind and become a just an afterthought. I want to keep the city of Lake Elmo moving, and my best judgment tells me that you don't stop, you keep forging ahead. So that's where I sit on this. I'm going to call the question.
I'd like to speak again.
You would, all right. Councilmember Beckstrom.
So I just want to say how incredibly disappointed I am that we've taken how many meetings to talk on this topic and put it off only to move it forward because we're not going to play into the fear of not having water. I get it, but I would ask this council why We cannot sit down and put a plan together on what we believe is right for development and redevelopment, just as you've wanted to do with the moratorium tonight. Why can we not, as a council, put a plan together for the next couple of years as to what development looks like? It's very clear based on Councilmember Holtz's comments tonight exactly why we cannot do that. Ball fields, high-density developments that are coming to the table, these are all going to be approved. We need the ball field money, which is why he asked about the parks funding. How much money is calculated that we're going to get from the park money with this development? And so this really doesn't have anything to do with this particular development or the fact that we have, nothing has changed with our water in the last couple of months. It has everything to do with the agendas on this council of getting a ball field and getting low-income housing, and all of the little pet projects that we have. This has nothing to do with putting a plan together and executing on that plan as a collective council. And it's very disappointing to me that we can't put the effort into putting a plan together for this, but we can put a moratorium in place to prevent businesses we don't want in the Old Village area from coming in. So that's my piece.
I'll just say this, that we can put that in a workshop, and we can discuss it at length. And that's all I'm gonna take on this topic at this point in time. So I'm gonna call the question on the motion to adopt Resolution 2024-007, approving the preliminary plat for Bridgewater Village and the findings and condition therein. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-1. All right, moving along. Council reports. Anything, Mr. Dragisich?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Mr. Holtz?
A couple things, as we do care about water. On January 17th, 3M Priority Group Number 2 met, and that is the priority where there's 20 million set aside for restoration of damaged areas, essentially. That 20 million is a part of the larger 850 million. They are now at the point where they're going to be receiving grant requests. So you as a member of the public, individually, as part of a nonprofit, as part of a company, whoever you are, that process is going to be starting soon. So if there are ideas or projects you're thinking of where you think a grant from this process would help to, and there's criteria, you could reach out to myself or to Administrator Schroeder on this as well. If there's a thought where you have the request for money, let us know and we can help to give you the information you need to help on your end, to at least help with the application process. Doesn't mean that it would get approved at all. 20 million is going to go pretty quick. Good thing is the fund has actually earned over 5% interest over the last couple of years, so it grew. January 17 was also the day of the East Metro Water Group, and I'm sure the mayor or Administrator Schroeder can speak to that further, but the ball's rolling on that. And there are going to be many smart people in the room who have an obligation per statute to come up with a plan. It's not that there's a hope and a dream. They have a statutory obligation to create a plan for water supplies in the East Metro. And so it's not just a hope, it's an expectation, it's a requirement. Last thing I would note is I don't question the intent of other council members when I'm up here. My intent in asking about the Parks Dedication Fund is because we all know that we have costs coming up for replacement of playgrounds. We know that our dedication fees are decreasing, and I want to make sure that the calculation was done correctly because we had a development that was done within the last year where the calculation was not done correctly. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. So tomorrow afternoon, I will be attending a Washington County Long Range Transportation Plan, and I believe Public Works Director Marty will be attending one on Thursday in Woodbury. So that's kicking off for Washington County. I'm glad to be invited and part of that process. Did attend the East Water Metro Group with Councilmember Holtz and Administrator Schroeder at the end of end of January, excuse me. Yes, there's many people there, Department of Health, DNR, Met Council, some consultants that have been working on this type of project since 2000, I think 2012, I was the kind of the first article I read about it in the paper. So it's been a long-standing issue, and looking forward to some resolution and getting some positive comments on that for the legislature to review. Councilmember Backstrom.
I just want to make a request of our administrator to make it public to council members, all of the meetings that council members are attending, and to spread that around so that it's not just two council members attending various meetings without others having the opportunity.
Okay. Councilmember Hearn.
No report.
Okay.
Mr. Schroeder.
Yep, I have a couple comments here. Under the Lake Elmo website, when you look under helpful information, we have added information that we think is relevant, not only for the citizens, but council and general public. In there is under allocation for water is a link for the White Bear Lake Comprehensive Work Plan Group. Under there, you'll find minutes, you'll find research, you'll find data, you'll find all sorts of information on that group. And they post after each meeting their minutes and any type of information in there. You'll also see the history of the DNR allocation issue. And this goes on and on and on and on. So this goes on for years. And so there's a lot of information about why is the DNR involved with this and what happened to that. It's very educational to do that. In the tab that is under water topics, you will find what is PFAS. You can request to have your individual private well tested. We have maps that you can click on individual wells and see results for those. You can also see the results for our city water that is tested and uploaded to the Minnesota Department of Health. There's new guidance that came out concerning PFAS. It has been in the news recently. We have a link to that. I explained of the grants that we are utilizing from the 3M settlement funds via the trustees and the MPCA to hook up new neighborhoods. So that money is coming to the city for us to hook up hundreds of homes that have contaminated water. And so that's where that money is coming from. And then in addition, there's some guidance for reducing exposure. So I'd encourage residents to go that. And I will, I think we have one more water study group that I can actually post to find that information and put that up there. I've not attended those meetings yet since I'm new, but I will find that information so that that's up there for residents and for council. For council consideration, we are moving along with our search for public administrator. We have a profile I would like council comments on. If you have any comments on that, please get to me by tomorrow on that so we can get that posted, at least to get noticed on that. In addition, I would like council to consider the workshop on March 12th. We have some things on the agenda which we may have to change the agenda or the timeline on that. Washington County wants to present the 36 and 17 interchange to get your final feedback on there. They want to go to final design. Jack and I were at a meeting the other day about this with Washington County and City of Grant and Valley Branch and the state. And they have landed on what their recommendation is, and they would like you guys to hear their presentation and weigh in on the final design for that intersection. I've provided some comments back to them for my thoughts. We also have two concepts during that meeting, Legends of Lake Elmo, we have Limerick, and then we also are supposed to review mini resumes for selections for semifinalists. So one of the things I would like council to consider is maybe having the review mini resumes and selections of semifinalists. This would be an open meeting. You know, it's not a closed session, but probably won't have a lot of people around. But I would like to maybe see that meeting at 5 o'clock if council is amenable towards that. So then we could dedicate our time for the Washington County meeting. I don't want to rush the 36 and 17 this is a generational intersection for this whole area. And I want to make sure you have the time to deep dive into it and ask the questions and work with the county on this. And plus these other two concepts coming before you are complicated concepts, and they would probably deserve time to present and ask questions. So would council be amenable towards a 5 PM meeting on the 12th of March? And yes. And you can check and get back to me. So I know you don't have your schedule, so get back to me in the next few days. It's no rush, but I want to make sure the search firm is available for that particular area. But I think it might be a more thorough, relaxed time to review these versus feeling we have to rush to get through it for these other things on the agenda. That's all.
Thank you. Julie?
Mr. Mayor, just a reminder for residents that early voting for the presidential primary in March is currently ongoing at the Washington County Government Center and other service centers in the county. And then also a reminder as well to check your polling location. If you are in precinct 1 and used to vote at the fire station, you will now be voting here at the city center.
Okay. Carissa?
No updates for administration.
Okay.
No report.
Okay, imagine Mr. Maskey doesn't have anything. I would like to introduce Mr. Jason Stopa. Did I pronounce that right? All right. As our new community development coordinator.
Director.
Director, excuse me. Would you like to just introduce yourself to people? And I'm hoping everybody in the city's already met you. And
Yeah, it's been, my name is Jason Stopa. I'm the new Community Development Director. I've been here for 2 days, and I've met, I think, everybody in this room. And, you know, it's great being here, working in the city. There's a lot of development happening. It's exciting to be a part of it. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody on everything that's going on in Lake Elmo.
welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jason.
Welcome.
Clarissa, you don't have anything? You know how long it took me to get Carissa and Clarissa right? I struggled with that every time. I think I got it now. Adam?
Nothing further.
Marty?
Nothing.
Chief?
No report.
Jack?
Just two quick things. I'm meeting with Stillwater Boulevard trunk water main residents, the 10 residents that'll be getting water main stubs this Thursday for a project meeting to gauge interest for connecting. And then also the county is having the second open house for the Manning Avenue Phase 3 improvements. That meeting's going to be held Tuesday, February 13th at the West Lakeland Township Hall. The proposed improvements are largely in West Lakeland Township, but they do touch Lake Elmo in a couple places. And the primary improvement that's of interest to Lake Elmo is turn lanes being added at Manning Trail.
All right, thank you. Sarah?
Just a reminder, there's a closed session after the meeting.
I knew you were gonna do that. All right.
Don't want everybody to,
What's that?
don't want everybody to disperse.
Yeah, I was gonna mention something in my council report, but I didn't wanna take that opportunity away from you. So, the city council will hold a closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3, subsection 3, to develop offers for the purchase of the following properties: PID 24.029.21.13.0002 or PID 15.029.21.41.0001 or PID 15.029.21.42.0004. Can I get a motion